Child poverty has become a far bigger problem than pensioner poverty. You can't let children suffer. You've got to do something about it. At every point, you've got people being made worse off, and that's why we need a complete review of the system.
For former Prime Minister Gordon Brown, things in the UK have clearly gone wrong. During his time as Labour's Chancellor, Brown made tackling poverty a key mission and priority. He introduced tax credits to support low-income families and widened access to child benefit. But since then, he says that the benefit system has broken and is in need of urgent review. This includes Labour's decision to keep the Conservatives' two-child benefit limit.
You're choosing to spend this part of your career focusing on child poverty. Did you expect that we would be in the situation we are in today when you left office?
In the last few years, we're seeing poverty I never thought I'd see again. When we came into power in 1997, it was poverty amongst pensioners, and we had to do something about it. Then we turned attention to trying to relieve child poverty, and we're now back to levels of child poverty that we haven't seen for 50 or 60 years. I lived in a community when I was growing up that had slum housing. We had a lot of travelling people, a lot of redundancies in the coal and textile industries. And now we're seeing the kind of poverty I thought we had eliminated for good. So we have got to do something about it.
The former Prime Minister has dedicated the latter part of his career to tackling child poverty across the UK. He spoke to us in Middlesbrough at the launch of something called a multibank. A multibank is like a food bank, but it has everything, including clothing, shoes, toiletries, children's toys, and baby clothes. The idea is that families who are struggling can get everything they need here.
And we're now working with a lot of charities. Food banks are doing a great job, other charities too. But the multi-bank gives us a new dimension because companies do have surplus goods that would otherwise be destroyed and polluting, and charities know the goods that they need from the companies. And if we can link the two together, we can meet unmet needs by using these surplus resources.
What do you think is causing the poverty, particularly child poverty, poverty amongst low-income families that we are seeing today? As you know, it's rising at the fastest rate since the 80s.
So 70% of the children in poverty are in families where someone's working. So low pay, interrupted earnings, short-time working, childcare that you can't afford, travel to work areas that make it difficult for you to actually pay for bus fares and so on and so forth. All these things are contributing that from the workplace people are not earning enough, and that's tragic. If you can't come home after a week's hard work and make ends meet, there is something wrong, so something's got to give. Now the minimum wage is going up, but obviously we introduced child tax credits to make it possible for people to build on their child benefit and get some help when the need was greatest, and that's what I think the Child Poverty Review is going to look at.
You describe in your memoir poverty as an obscenity. When the Conservatives brought in the two-child benefit cap, how did you feel looking on?
Well, since 2010, you've had the two-child rule, you've had the benefit cap, you've had the housing benefit limits imposed, you've had the series of deductions which have become very widespread, so that half people on benefit were having deductions. So at every point, plus the freezing of benefits, including child benefit, you've got people being made worse off, and that's why we need a complete review of the system, including all the things that you're talking about, and that's got to happen in the next few months by April. But in the meantime, you can't let children suffer. You've got to do something about it. And the most important thing that I think we can do is help bridge that gap between what people have at the moment and what they need, particularly for children in the run-up to Christmas. And so there's 1 million children tonight who are trying to sleep without a bed of their own. So we can do something about that. There's probably 2 million children in homes which either don't have a fridge or a freezer or a washing machine or even a kitchen table, and we can do something about that. 12% said that their children might have been in care had they not had this special help that was available. A lot of people were saying that school attendance had increased because children had they had the trainers and everything else to go to school. So you can make a difference, but clearly in the long term, there's got to be a complete review of the child poverty policy.
Do you think the housing market is out of control?
Well, I think what we've found is that, as I say, 12% said that if they didn't have the help that we could give them to bridge the gap in their family finances, they would have been evicted or faced eviction. And of course, rents, particularly for single parents in private furnished or unfurnished accommodation, have been going up very fast. So something has got to be done to help those families. You know, the child tax credit was introduced on top of child benefit because we recognized that from the workplace, a lot of workers were not earning enough to make ends meet. And particularly when the children were growing up, they needed some special help. And we've got to review that given all the changes that happened over the last 14 years.
What are some of the stories that have stayed with you of people who have used these multi-banks that you're behind?
I think there's some very straightforward stories where people have come into the Multibank and just to have something that is not second-hand, that is new, make a difference to the lives of people who've always had to have second-hand goods. So we don't want to be a second-hand society. And when you can give someone something that they need. So you have these two kids that can't go to football training because there's only one pair of football boots in the family, and then that football boots, they outgrow them as well. And if you can help them with what seems a small thing but very expensive item, you're making a difference. There was a girl who was in the shopping centre in Wigan I was mentioning who was just in her school clothes on a Saturday afternoon, and it was second-hand clothes that had been handed down as a charity act given to the school, but the Multibank was able to give her decent clothes. And all these things can actually make a difference. What worries me is the mental stress people are under, the attempted suicides, people who feel that they just can't go on, people who feel the struggle is too much now. We ought to be able to help these people through a difficult time, and often it's a period of time where if they come through that, they can make a better life for themselves. So a multi-bank exists because it can take a holistic view of the needs of a family.
You're doing work that you never envisaged would be necessary. In the child poverty review, do you hope that the benefit cap and the two-child rule will be done away with?
Well, that's what they've got to look at. You've got to have a holistic answer that makes it better for children in need. Child poverty has become a far bigger problem than pensioner poverty. It's got to be dealt with in a new way. Now, clearly, you want to help people who are in low-paid jobs get into better-paid jobs. You want to help mothers get childcare if they want to go out and work. You've got to help people travel to work without huge expense so you can get the kind of job they want. So there's a lot of reforms in the labour market that can actually help people. A lot of reforms in energy pricing, rents, other areas where utilities are very expensive that could be done. But in the end, we've got to look at universal credit and how it can be reformed.